Ever wonder what life was like for black men and women who were living in Michoacán during the colonial period? Maybe it's just me because I'm a nerd. Here are some cool documents I came across in my own research, collected in the historic archive of the city of Pátzcuaro. So there's this old document written in 1570. According to the finding aid, this involved a free black couple that was trying to gain access to lands that were given to them in the Chichimecas region. And by given, I mean claimed by the Spaniards. There was also this fun document that involved the sale of pulque. Pulque, which is an alcoholic drink, was prohibited from sale at this time. This case that was also from 1570 involved a black woman who was caught selling pulque, which she sold in the house of a slave master named Pedro Pantoja. And those were just a few examples. Might share some more in the coming days. Afro-Mexicans living in Michoacán during the 1500s, Part 2. These were some documents I came across in the Archivo Histórico de la Ciudad de Pátzcuaro. Shout out to Rosa Lilia, one of the archivists there, who was really cool with me. This document from 1551 was regarding a runaway African slave named Bernardo. Interestingly, we find that the person who's trying to recuperate the runaway African slave is Don Antonio Huitzimengari. He's the indigenous governor of Michoacán. In the Museum of Morelia, Michoacán, you'll actually find a portrait of Don Antonio Huitzimengari. He was a descendant of the Purepecha ruling family. Specifically, he was the son of the Gasonsi. Although he was an African descendant himself, his status as a slave owner is interesting though. It shows us how indigenous nobles who worked with the Spanish got these sorts of privileges, the right to own slaves. African slaves in Michoacán during the 1500s. Documents related to Afro-Mexicans in the Archivo Histórico de la Ciudad de Pátzcuaro, Part 3. There's this account from 1573 regarding a runaway African slave named Francisco. Unfortunately, he was captured. And it says here that the alguacil who turned him in was paid 10 pesos. Here we have a bill of sale regarding an African slave named Juan. They paid 160 pesos worth of gold for him, and this one was in 1552. Here we have a document from 1553. Here Alonso Toledo sells an African slave named Juan Blanco. Interestingly, it notes that he's from the Congo and from the coast, which I'm guessing he means by the coast of Africa, but I'm not too sure. But he was sold to a Francisco de Villegas, who was a well-known encomendero in Michoacán, meaning he also had indigenous slaves. So going back to this document about a runaway African slave in Michoacán in 1551, now what's interesting about this document is that we usually hear about runaway African slaves being claimed by white men in the Americas, but in this case it's an indigenous nobleman named Don Antonio Huitzimengari, who's Purepecha, who was trying to recuperate this slave. The runaway's name is Bernaldo. Unfortunately though, with a lot of these, short documents that are like 2 or 3 pages, they don't give us a lot of insight into his life. The only thing specific to him are these 5 lines, where he gives the orders. Here he tells the tribute collector or the contador, "Podáis recibir e cobrar en vos un esclavo mío negro que a nombre Bernaldo, que me anda huido y absentado de mi poder." Yes, the funny spelling that's Colonial Spanish for you. But the rest of the document is just him emphasizing the order.